Greetings programs and welcome to my first new video on the new channel. I'm going to talk this time about one of the shows I watched during my hiatus, and that is Stranger Things on Netflix. Now it's a Netflix production, which means you're not going to be able to watch it elsewhere, at least not for now, and not, legally. I'm sure if you're willing to bend rules there are ways and means, but I would not condone such things necessarily. It's just people will do them anyway. So what it is a sci-fi show, and it's a thriller, and it's got a bit of horror about it as well. But what it is more than that is a slice of nostalgia, because it's very deliberately going for a rather 80s kind of theme. It's tonally very reminiscent of a lot of sci-fi from around that era. So things like The Thing or Alien or, Spielberg films from around that era, Close Encounters and E.T., stuff like that. So, and even non-sci-fi stuff, I'm sure there are other influences from that era as well. And it's interesting because they've not just set out to tell a story, but they've set out to tell a story in this almost kind of nostalgic rose-tinted way. Except that's not quite the right way to put it, but it's done very effectively. It had the potential to just not work at all, because a lot of the time when people try and evoke the feel of an earlier era of TV or cinema or whatever, most of the time it does not work. Most of the time it just kind of falls flat. But that's not the case this time. It actually does it really, really effectively. And it's just everything about the show. It's the setting and the cinematography and all of the obvious influences, and it just works. It just works. Now, the show itself is basically about, it starts off about the disappearance of a young boy, and that leads us into a larger mystery. Now, it would not be a spoiler to say that it turns out that there's this monster involved, because you basically get told that at the very start of the very first episode. There's this very alien-esque scene where you see this guy running into a lift, desperately running away from something, and there's emergency lights blaring and whatever, and he's in the lift and he thinks he's safe, and then suddenly he gets grabbed from above by something. So it doesn't take a great stretch of the imagination to posit that, there's a bad thing on the loose. And a big part of the series is first this group of kids, and then other people get involved as well, basically trying to figure out what the heck this thing is, where it is, and basically how to try and rescue this missing boy, Will Byers. So it kind of builds up in a very satisfying way. The pace of the show, and it's only 8 episodes long, and they're sort of 45 minutes to an hour. The pace is pretty good. It doesn't drag itself out too much. The one thing that I thought was maybe a little bit overdone is the boy's mother, the character's mother, Joyce Byers, as played by Winona Ryder. I think she's probably the biggest name on the cast. She's kind of obviously, like, her son's missing and she's quite frantic, and I think they maybe overplayed that a little bit in terms of she spends maybe a little bit too long running around sort of being frantic at people, if that makes any sense. It might do if you see the show, but otherwise I felt that, like, there's not a lot bad to say about it. It's a really, really solid piece of storytelling, and it had the potential to just be terrible, and instead it's actually pretty good. Now, I will say, this is not one that everything I've done up till now, like the 3 emergency videos where I was talking about various TV things, right? It's all TV stuff that I've just really enjoyed in the past, and I quite enjoyed this show, but this is not one that would necessarily stick around in my consciousness, if that makes any sense. It's one where I've watched it and I've enjoyed it, and now I'm going to move on to other things. It's not a thing that I will keep coming back to, like, say, Steins Gate or Utopia or any of the other, favourite shows that I've got DVDs of on my shelf. There is, however, having said that, there is going to be a second series of it. Netflix have confirmed that. So it will be very interesting to see where it goes. I will certainly be watching it. If it's as good as the first series, which has been fairly critically acclaimed, then it will be well worth my time watching. I felt this was worth my time watching. It was a very nice, self-contained story, but it ends in such a way that says, it says that there are consequences from everything that has happened, and it will be interesting to see what those consequences are, even if it's very opaque. It doesn't give much away. It could just have existed as this single series and it would have been fine, and I think it's quite nice that it's getting another series. I think the reaction to it's just been good enough that Netflix has gone, okay, the Duffer Brothers, have some more money, make us another one of these, please. So, where it goes from where it left off, I don't know. It might still be connected with the super secret government lab. I doubt it somehow, though. But we shall see. We shall see. So this was a rather shorter one because I just felt there was less to talk about in this. The main thing that's stuck in my head about this is just that nostalgic 80s feel about it. And if that's what they were going for, they've done it very, very successfully. It really works well in that regard. But it maybe overshadows the actual plot of the show a little bit, if that makes any sense. It might do if you sat down and watched it, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me that feels like that. So it probably won't blow your socks off just because it does play so heavily on that nostalgia factor, but at the same time, I think this was a good show, and it probably is worth your time if you're a fan of films of that era, not even necessarily sci-fi of that era, but just films of that era. Anyway, that was my take on Stranger Things, and if you found that useful or interesting, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can sub to my new channel if you haven't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.